The twin moons of New Terra cast an eerie blue glow across the empty highway as Janae guided her small transport vehicle through the night. Her fingers drummed against the steering wheel, tired but satisfied after another successful shift maintaining the massive defense grid that protected their colony. The towering energy barriers hummed quietly in the distance, their soft light creating dancing shadows across the metallic landscape. Janae yawned and reached for her thermos of coffee, the bitter taste helping her stay alert for the drive home. At 26, she had already earned recognition as one of the colony's most skilled engineers, but tonight felt like any other routine shift. She had spent hours calibrating the quantum resonance chambers and updating the targeting algorithms that kept their world safe from space, debris, and potential threats. The peaceful silence shattered when brilliant red and blue lights suddenly blazed behind her. Janae's heart sank as she recognized the distinctive pattern of a galactic patrol cruiser. The massive vessel, icily 3 times the size of her modest transport, descended from the sky with mechanical precision. Its angular hull gleamed with authority markings, and powerful searchlights cut through the darkness like burning swords. She pulled over to the shoulder of the road, her hands trembling slightly as she turned off the engine. Through her rearview mirror, she watched 2 figures emerge from the patrol ship. Commander Thresh stepped out first, his towering Vexti frame casting a menacing shadow. His species stood nearly 8 feet tall, with gray-scaled skin and multiple arms that moved with predatory grace. His partner, Officer Clix, belonged to the insectoid Zek race, his compound eyes glowing amber in the artificial light. Both officers approached her vehicle with obvious suspicion, their hands resting on the energy weapons attached to their utility belts. Janae lowered her window and tried to smile, though her mouth felt dry with nervous anticipation. "License and identification," Commander Thresh demanded, his voice carrying the harsh accent typical of his homeworld. He leaned down to peer into her vehicle, his 4 eyes scanning the interior with calculating intensity. Janae handed over her documents, including her engineering credentials and security clearance for the defense grid facility. "Is there a problem, officers? I was just heading home from work." Officer Clix chittered something in his native language, and Thresh's expression darkened further. "Work at this hour? What kind of work requires humans to be out so late?" "I'm a systems engineer for the planetary defense grid," Janae explained patiently. "I work the night shift to perform maintenance when the system has lower traffic loads." Thresh examined her credentials with obvious skepticism, turning the holographic ID cards over in his hands as if searching for flaws. These could be forgeries. Humans are known for their deceptive practices. The accusation stung, but Janae forced herself to remain calm. "You can verify my identity through the colonial database. My supervisor is Minho Park, and you can contact the facility directly." "Step out of the vehicle," Clix suddenly ordered, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "We're conducting a search for contraband materials." Janae's heart raced as she complied, watching helplessly as the 2 officers began rifling through her transport. They opened every compartment, scattered her personal belongings across the seats, and even dismantled parts of her dashboard. Her engineering toolkit received particular attention, with Thresh holding up various calibration devices as if they were smoking guns. "What are these devices?" he demanded, waving a quantum scanner in the air. "Those are diagnostic tools for my job," Janae replied, trying to keep the frustration from her voice. "They're standard equipment for any engineer working with energy systems, or perfect for bypassing security systems," Clix suggested with a threatening buzz. "These could be used for illegal activities, smuggling operations, or worse." The search continued for what felt like hours, though Janae's chronometer showed only 20 minutes had passed. The officers treated every item they found as potential evidence of wrongdoing. From her spare clothes to her half-eaten sandwich, they questioned her about her route, her work schedule, and even her family background, clearly fishing for any excuse to justify their harassment. "You humans think you're so clever," Thresh muttered as he examined her personal tablet. "Coming to our sector of space, taking jobs from legitimate species, undermining galactic stability with your chaotic nature." Janae bit back her response, knowing that any sign of defiance would only make things worse. She had heard the stories from other human colonists about similar encounters with prejudiced patrol officers. The Galactic Council officially prohibited discrimination, but enforcement remained spotty in remote sectors like theirs. As the search dragged on, Janae noticed storm clouds gathering on the horizon, and her weather app indicated incoming electrical activity that could interfere with the defense grid's sensors. She needed to get home and monitor the situation remotely. But the officers showed no signs of concluding their investigation. The night air grew colder, and Janae shivered in her work uniform, watching her life being turned upside down by two beings who had already decided she was guilty of something, even if they couldn't figure out what. The piercing wail of Janae's emergency communicator cut through the night air like a blade. The device, clipped to her belt, flashed urgent red warnings as it received the highest priority alert possible. Janae's blood turned to ice as she recognized the specific pattern of beeps and flashes that meant only one thing: catastrophic system failure. Commander Thresh spun around, his scaled face twisted with suspicion. "What is that noise? Turn it off immediately." "I can't," Janae said, her voice tight with growing panic. "This is an emergency alert from the planetary defense grid. Something's gone terribly wrong with the system." She reached for the communicator, but Officer Clix's insectoid arm shot out faster than lightning, knocking the device from her grasp. It clattered across the pavement, still screaming its digital warning into the night. "Nice try, human," Clix chittered, his compound eyes reflecting the pulsing red light. "Creating a distraction won't help you escape whatever illegal activities you've been involved in." Janae dove for the communicator, desperation overriding her caution. The message that appeared on the small screen made her stomach drop like a stone. "Critical malfunction in sectors 7 through 12. Primary defense matrix offline. Backup systems failing. All senior engineers report immediately." "You don't understand," she pleaded, holding up the device. "I'm the lead systems engineer for the night shift. The defense grid is failing, and without it, our entire colony is defenseless. I have to get to the control center right now." Thresh's booming laugh echoed across the empty highway. "Lead engineer, you look at yourself, human. You're barely out of childhood, driving a beaten-up transport vehicle, working the night shift like some common laborer. Real engineers don't look like you." The racist implications of his words hit Janae like a physical blow, but she forced herself to focus on the crisis at hand. Her personal tablet began buzzing with incoming messages from her colleague Hyanwu. At the control center, the updates painted an increasingly dire picture: quantum stabilizers offline, energy conduits overheating, and the main computer systems crashing one by one. Far above them, invisible to the naked eye, the colony's long-range sensor arrays were painting a terrifying picture across their displays. A massive asteroid cluster, chunks of rock and metal the size of city blocks, was hurtling through space directly toward New Terra. The automated tracking systems calculated impact trajectories with cold precision, showing devastation across multiple population centers. At the Colonial Defense Headquarters, alarms blared as technicians scrambled to understand the scope of the disaster. The asteroids had been knocked out of their stable orbit by a rogue comet, creating a deadly shower of cosmic debris that would reach New Terra in less than 2 hours. Without the planetary defense grid operating at full capacity, the colony's 12 million inhabitants faced annihilation. Janae's tablet chimed with an urgent video message from Director Kim at the Central Command. His weathered face appeared on the screen, streaked with sweat and etched with worry. "Janae, thank goodness. We need you here immediately. The cascade failure is spreading faster than we anticipated, and you're the only one who understands the quantum resonance protocols well enough to execute an emergency restart." Commander Thresh snatched the tablet from her hands, studying the message with growing confusion. This could be fabricated. Humans are masters of deception and digital manipulation. "Look at the timestamp," Janae urged, pointing at the screen. "Check the authentication codes. Call the Colonial Headquarters yourself if you don't believe me. But please, every minute we waste here brings those asteroids closer to impact, officer." Clix activated his own communication device, connecting to the Galactic Patrol's information network. After a few moments, his mandibles began clicking rapidly in what Janae recognized as his species' equivalent of nervous tension. Data streams flowed across his scanner, confirming the asteroid threat and the defense grid failure. "The long-range sensors are picking up multiple large objects on collision course with the planet," he admitted reluctantly. "But this could still be an elaborate setup to help this human escape justice." Janae felt precious minutes ticking away as she watched the officers debate among themselves in their native languages. Her tablet continued buzzing with increasingly desperate messages from the control center. Hyanwu reported that the backup generators were overheating, and the emergency protocols were failing to engage properly. Without her specialized knowledge of the system's core programming, they were running out of options. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on her. These same officers who saw her as nothing more than a suspicious human were now inadvertently preventing her from saving their lives along with everyone else on the colony. The asteroid cluster didn't care about species or prejudice. It would destroy Vextai, Zek, and human settlements with equal indifference. "I'm begging you," Janae said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Let me do my job. Let me save our world. You can arrest me afterward if you still think I'm a criminal. But right now, I'm the only person who can fix this system before those asteroids turn everything we've built into dust and rubble." The two officers exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their previously confident demeanor as the weight of the situation began to sink in. The haunting wail of emergency sirens suddenly pierced the night air across New Terra. The sound started as a distant hum but quickly grew into a bone-chilling chorus that echoed from every settlement, every outpost, every corner of the colony. Janae's heart hammered against her ribs as she recognized the pattern. This was the colony-wide disaster alert, something she had only heard during training drills. Emergency broadcast towers across the planet flickered to life, their powerful transmitters cutting through all regular programming. The voice of Colonial Administrator Lee filled the airwaves, his usually calm tone cracking with barely controlled panic. "Attention all residents of New Terra. We are facing an imminent asteroid impact threat. Multiple large objects are on collision course with our planet. All citizens must seek immediate shelter in designated emergency bunkers. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Commander Thresh's confidence wavered as the gravity of the situation hit him. His scaled hands trembled slightly as he activated his own communication device, trying to contact Galactic Patrol headquarters. Officer Clix's compound eyes darted nervously between Janae and the increasingly frantic emergency broadcasts filling the air. "The defense grid is our only protection," Janae said urgently, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Without it, those asteroids will hit the surface with the force of 1,000 nuclear weapons. Entire cities will be vaporized in seconds." The emergency broadcasts continued with devastating updates. Long-range sensors showed the asteroid cluster was now less than 90 minutes away. The largest chunk measured nearly 2 kilometers across, big enough to create a crater that would dwarf anything in the colony's history. Smaller fragments, each still massive enough to level city blocks, spread out like deadly confetti across the impact zone. Janae's tablet buzzed with another desperate message from Hyan Wu at the control center. His face appeared on screen, sweat beading on his forehead as sparks flew from damaged equipment behind him. "Janae, where are you? The quantum core is destabilizing. We've lost 3 more sectors in the last 10 minutes. If we don't get you here soon, we won't have a defense grid left to repair." That's when Janae made her choice. Her eyes fell on the electromagnetic pulse generator in her engineering toolkit, a device designed for resetting stubborn quantum processes, but powerful enough to disable electronic systems within a 50-meter radius. She had never used it as a weapon, but desperate times called for desperate measures. "I'm sorry," she whispered, then activated the device. The EMP burst erupted like invisible lightning, sending waves of electromagnetic energy cascading through the air. The Galactic Patrol Cruiser's systems died instantly, lights flickering out, engines powering down, communication arrays going silent. Commander Thresh and Officer Clix staggered as their personal equipment failed, their weapons becoming useless chunks of metal and plastic. "What did you do?" Thresh roared, his 4 eyes blazing with fury as he lunged toward Janae, but she was already moving, her smaller human frame allowing her to dodge his grasping arms. She sprinted toward her transport vehicle, praying that its older, more shielded systems had survived the electromagnetic pulse. The engine coughed to life on the second try, and Janae floored the accelerator, leaving the 2 stranded officers behind in a cloud of dust and engine exhaust. The highway stretched ahead of her, like a ribbon of hope. But even as she drove, Janae could see the catastrophe unfolding around her. Emergency vehicles raced in all directions, their sirens adding to the cacophony of chaos. Overhead, she glimpsed the colony's few remaining military craft launching from their bases, their engines burning bright against the star-filled sky. But she knew they were too few and too small to make any difference against the incoming asteroid stormed up behind her. Commander Thresh and Officer Clix stood beside their dead patrol cruiser, the reality of their situation finally sinking in. Their communication equipment was fried, their weapons useless, their transportation destroyed. The emergency broadcasts continued around them, painting an increasingly dire picture of the approaching catastrophe. "We need to find shelter," Clix chittered, his usual arrogance replaced by genuine fear. "The nearest emergency bunker is 15 kilometers away. On foot." Thresher's voice carried a note of desperation. "We'll never make it in time." For the first time, they began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. The young human woman they had dismissed and harassed was racing toward what might be their only salvation. Her expertise, her knowledge, her desperate determination, these were the colony's last hope against annihilation. Janae's transport roared through the night, its engine pushed to the limit as she navigated the increasingly chaotic streets. Emergency vehicles blocked intersections, confused civilians wandered in panic, and the constant wail of sirens filled the air like the sound of a dying world. But she pressed on, knowing that every second counted. Every heartbeat brought the asteroids closer to impact. In the distance, the massive towers of the Defense Grid Control Center rose against the horizon, their normally reassuring lights now flickering weakly like dying stars. Time was running out for everyone on New Terra. Janae's transport skidded to a halt outside the Defense Grid Control Center as sparks rained from the massive facility's damaged exterior. The towering structure, normally a beacon of technological achievement, now looked like a wounded giant bleeding electricity into the night sky. Emergency crews rushed past her carrying damaged equipment and injured technicians, their faces etched with the same desperate urgency that drove her forward. Inside the control center, chaos reigned supreme. Hyan Wu spotted her immediately and rushed over, his usually neat appearance disheveled from hours of crisis management. "Thank the stars you're here," he gasped, wiping sweat from his brow. "We've lost 7 more sectors since my last message. The cascade failure is spreading faster than we can contain it." The main control room buzzed with frantic activity as dozens of technicians worked at their stations, their screens filled with red warning indicators and failing system diagnostics. The massive holographic display at the center showed New Defense Grid as a 3-dimensional web of energy, but huge sections now flickered weakly or had gone completely dark. "Show me the damage report," Janae commanded, her engineer's mind already shifting into crisis mode despite the exhaustion. Weighing on her shoulders, Hyan Wu led her to the primary diagnostic terminal, where the scope of the disaster became clear. The quantum resonance chambers that powered the entire grid had fallen out of sync, creating a feedback loop that was systematically destroying the network from within. Each failed sector put additional strain on the remaining systems, accelerating the collapse. "The automated repair protocols can't handle this level of damage," Hyan Wu explained, pointing to the cascading failures on screen. "We need someone to manually restart the primary power core, but ... He paused, his expression growing grave. "But what?" Janae pressed, though she already suspected the answer. "The radiation levels in the core chamber are lethal. Anyone who goes in there will be exposed to enough quantum energy to kill them within minutes. We've already lost 2 maintenance robots to the electromagnetic interference." Janae studied the schematics, her mind racing through possible solutions. The primary power core sat at the heart of the facility, protected by multiple layers of shielding that had been compromised by the system failures. Manual restart procedures required, someone to physically access the core control panels and execute a complex sequence of commands that couldn't be performed remotely. "How long do we have?" she asked quietly. 43 minutes until the first asteroids enter our atmosphere," Hyan Wu replied, checking his chronometer. "Even if we restore the grid immediately, we'll need at least 10 minutes to bring the defense systems online and target the incoming threats." Around them, the control room erupted in fresh panic as another sector failed. The holographic display showed the defense grid's coverage shrinking like a dying star, leaving vast areas of the colony completely unprotected. Emergency broadcasts continued to flood the airwaves, reporting mass evacuations and overcrowded emergency shelters. Janae closed her eyes for a moment, weighing her options. She thought of her family in the southern settlements, her friends working the night shift at various facilities across the colony, the millions of innocent people who would die if the asteroids struck undefended. The choice was clear, even if it meant her own death. "I'll do it," she said simply. "Janae, no," Hyan Wu protested. "There has to be another way." "We can't ask you to." "You're not asking," she interrupted, already moving toward the equipment lockers. "I'm volunteering. I designed half the safety protocols for that core chamber. If anyone can do this quickly enough to survive, it's me." She pulled on a radiation suit, its heavy lead-lined fabric providing some protection against the deadly energy that awaited her. The helmet's heads-up display showed her vital signs and radiation exposure levels, currently reading 0 but certain to climb rapidly once she entered the core chamber. Meanwhile, 15 kilometers away, Commander Thresh and Officer Clicks huddled near an abandoned transport vehicle, watching the emergency broadcasts on a small portable screen they had salvaged from the wreckage. The news feeds showed the defense grid control center, and both officers recognized Janae's face as she appeared on camera, preparing for what the reporters called a suicide mission. "That's her," Clicks chittered, his mandibles clicking with what might have been shame. "The human we detained." Thresh watched in stunned silence as the broadcast explained Janae's role as the lead systems engineer and her desperate plan to save the colony. The reporter's words cut through his prejudices like a blade. "Janae Park, one of our most brilliant engineers, is risking her life to restore the planetary defense grid. Without her expertise and courage, New Terra faces certain destruction." Back at the control center, Janae approached the sealed entrance to the core chamber. The massive blast doors bore warning signs in a dozen languages, all conveying the same message: deadly radiation beyond this point. She paused at the threshold, her hand hovering over the door controls. "For everyone on New Terra," she whispered, then activated the sequence that would seal her fate. The doors hissed open, revealing a corridor bathed in the eerie blue glow of quantum energy, leading toward humanity's last hope for survival. The core chamber pulsed with deadly beauty as Janae stepped through the reinforced doorway. Waves of quantum energy danced across the walls like liquid lightning, creating patterns that would have been mesmerizing if they weren't so lethal. Her radiation detector immediately began clicking frantically, the sound growing faster with each step toward the primary control console. "Radiation levels rising," her suit's computer announced in a calm voice that contrasted sharply with the chaos around her. "Exposure time remaining for minutes, 30 seconds. Janae's hands moved with practiced precision across the quantum resonance controls, her years of training taking over despite the mortal danger. The primary core towered above her like a miniature star, its surface crackling with barely contained energy that could power entire cities or destroy them with equal ease. She began the restart sequence, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as the radiation counter climbed steadily higher. Outside the chamber, Hien Wu and the entire control room watched her vital signs on their monitors. Her heart rate spiked as the radiation exposure reached dangerous levels, but her hands never wavered from their work. On the main display, sections of the defense grid began flickering back to life as Janae's repairs took effect. "She's doing it," someone whispered. "The grid is coming back online." With 37 minutes until asteroid impact, the first defense platforms powered up across New Terra's orbital network. Massive energy cannons that had been silent for hours suddenly hummed with deadly purpose, their targeting systems locking onto the incoming Space Orcs. The largest asteroid, a mountain-sized chunk of iron and stone, filled their sensors like a harbinger of doom. Janae's radiation exposure reached critical levels as she initiated the final restart protocols. Her vision blurred, and her hands shook from the quantum energy coursing through her body, but she refused to stop. The colony's survival depended on these last few commands, and she would complete them or die trying. "Core restart successful," the computer announced as the chamber's energy readings stabilized. Defense grid at 97% capacity. Janae collapsed against the control console, her strength finally giving out as the radiation suits. Alarms screamed warnings about her exposure levels. But she had done it. The planetary defense system was operational again. High above New Terra, the orbital defense platforms opened fire with spectacular displays of controlled destruction. Brilliant beams of concentrated energy lanced through space, striking the asteroid cluster with pinpoint accuracy. The largest rock exploded in a shower of glowing fragments, each piece small enough to burn up harmlessly in the atmosphere. That emergency medical teams rushed into the core chamber the moment the radiation levels dropped to survivable levels. They found Janae barely conscious but alive, her body fighting the effects of quantum poisoning. Advanced medical nanobots flooded her system, repairing cellular damage and neutralizing the deadly radiation before it could claim her life. The colony-wide celebration began as soon as the last asteroid fragment disintegrated in the upper atmosphere. Across New Terra, millions of people emerged from emergency shelters to see the light show of burning space debris streaking across the sky like the galaxy's most beautiful fireworks display. News of Janae's heroic actions spread throughout the sector faster than lightspeed communication could carry it. Within hours, her story reached the Galactic Council chambers, where representatives from dozens of species watched recordings of the young human engineer who had risked everything to save her world. Commander Thresh and Officer Clicks found themselves facing a very different kind of attention. Internal affairs investigators from the Galactic Patrol arrived within days, conducting thorough interviews about their conduct during the crisis. Security footage from their patrol cruiser told a damning story of prejudice and incompetence that had nearly cost millions of lives. You detained the one person who could save this colony, the lead investigator, a stern crystalline entity named Veltar, stated during their disciplinary hearing. Your actions were based on nothing more than species prejudice and ignorance. The hearing room filled with testimony from other officers who had witnessed similar behavior from Thresh and Clicks. Their pattern of harassment toward human colonists became clear, painting a picture of systematic discrimination that the Galactic Patrol could no longer ignore. As Gina recovered in the medical center, visitors from across the galaxy came to thank her personally. The Vextai ambassador, embarrassed by Commander Thresh's behavior, presented her with the highest civilian honor his species could bestow. The Zek Parliament issued a formal apology for Officer Clicks's conduct and established a scholarship fund for human engineering students. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when a group of young alien children from the colony's integrated schools visited her hospital room. They had drawn pictures of her saving their world, depicting her as a superhero surrounded by stars and planets. You showed us that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, one small Tenteran child said, offering her a crayon drawing of the defense grid. Thank you for saving our home. The incident sparked galaxy-wide reforms in patrol procedures and training protocols. The Galactic Council passed new legislation requiring cultural sensitivity, education, and strict penalties for discrimination based on species appearance. Janae's story became required reading in patrol academies, a powerful reminder that judgment should be based on character, not biology. 6 months later, Janae returned to work at the Defense Grid Control Center, her experience having made her an even more capable engineer. She carried herself with quiet confidence, knowing that when the moment of truth arrived, she had proven herself worthy of the trust placed in her. The end.